right. Wow. Looks like we're live again. Okay, let me get all of this set up very quickly here. I'd like to pop this out if it's all right. Oh, look at that. And we are doing so good so far. I'm just going to give it a second. Mm. Good morning to anybody who is going to be tuning in here. Uh, it is Friday at 8 a.m. And so I don't know how many people are going to say, "Oh, this is how I wanted to start my day," was right away with Connor being, frankly, horribly too loud. Um, which I get, which I totally understand, and that's all right. But this is going to be a another here for it Q&A with me, Connor. It's morning, so I would say, grab a cup of something nice and warm, or cold, because it's going to be, frankly, egregiously warm today. 85 degrees is too hot. So I hope you have your most breathable quarter zips on as we prepare for the inevitable march towards summertime. So good morning, everybody. I hope we're feeling good and feeling ready to go. Because that's yeah, I'm going to be getting into it right now. So I had some really awesome questions get sent to me this week, and I am frankly super excited about it. Um, so I'm kind of going to take these as I received them. So first off, I had a really awesome question come in about how much involvement somebody should have as an IHS worker when it comes to coordinating with case management, communicating with case management, as well as other members of the support team. And I love that question, because the answer is, generally speaking, uh, as a sort of basic rule, I would say limit case management communication coming from you. The way that we have our structure set up here is really to kind of make sure that uh, field coordinators are able to do a lot of the case management communication, and the reason for that is they are, in the office. Their job really is to communicate with everybody, and coordinate everyone. So having your field coordinator be the main point of contact with case management makes sense. You might end up moving off of a client, or a schedule might change, and what we don't want is for any sort of drop in continuity of care, or information kind of falling off, or communication kind of suddenly becoming a little bit more difficult for that case manager, right? That's a real relationship building thing for us. And so, best practice would be have that case management communication run through your field coordinator. But obviously, through the process of doing this job, you will probably at some point need to help a client email a case manager, or assist them in kind of advocating for themselves, or perhaps working with a different member of the support team. Those things, obviously do happen. I would say things to keep in mind with that, right? um Obviously, when it comes to communication with anybody outside of the agency, I want it to be professional, right? It's gotta be. And so I would say probably avoid like things like emojis. I don't If you're going to be emailing with somebody else, I would make sure that there's a distinction between what I would send in an email and what I would send in a text message, right? I want some good information. I want context. And the other thing that I would recommend, whenever you are communicating without that field coordinator kind of involved, maybe BCC them on that email, or at the very least, if it's coming from a client's email and you're merely helping them write, I would clue in your field coordinator as well, right? Making sure that everybody on the team is aware of what communication is happening, who that communication is kind of happening with, and what that communication about is really helpful to make sure that everybody's on the same page. Oftentimes, if it's a different member of the support team, they've already been communicating with the field coordinator, and it is very helpful for them to know, oh, my staff just also helped our client send this email about this topic. So um, I would say I'm obviously excellent at keeping answers as long as humanly possible. Connor, give us a really quick, concise wrap up to this. Okay, uh, I would say avoid doing a whole lot of communication. Minimal is best. If there is communication that needs to happen, go through field coordinator. If through the process of supporting a client, you are sending an email with that client to sort of advocate. Usually it's coming from the client's email. Loop in your field coordinator, make them aware of what you guys are talking about, who you are talking with. And then if there's follow up, that field coordinator will connect with you. And that way, everybody on the team is kind of aware of where we should sort of be heading. So simple, easy, nothing super wild, but I really like that question because I think there is oftentimes a big desire to, oh, I got to do this communication because it's easier if I take care of it. And there is a part that advocacy has to play in this, but I also want to teach our clients how to communicate, and how is it that we write this email in a way that isn't, immediately off-putting. There is a type of communication that we sort of need to have, and I think that it is a very helpful skill for our clients to learn. How do I communicate with different types of people in my life? There are my friends that I communicate with, and then there are people who are sort of in this professional world that I need to communicate with. And how does communication look differently? So I try to say, probably don't do it all yourself. As involved as the client can be, that's kind of the ideal there. So oh, I've gone off again and started re-explaining what I've done. Why don't we just take it there? Please loop in your field coordinator. Please try to keep your own communication with other staff, with other from other agencies, and case manager to a minimum, and really let that run through your field coordinator so that we do have that kind of continuity of communication and everybody is on the same page. Spectacular question though. I really enjoy that one. Mm, sorry, it's early. There'll be a lot more, I think, sipping on a beverage than may have been in the last one. But that's Friday mornings. The next question is one that we do deal with on a semi-frequent basis, and I think it's good to kind of dive into a little bit. So this question was really kind of trying to get at when clients are going into a doctor's appointment, or maybe having some sort of medically emergent situation. They may be hesitant to get or receive care, go to the hospital, be admitted because they have pets. And is there anything that we can do to sort of assist during that time? Um, It's uncomfortable. I let me put that out there. It that's a tough situation to deal with, right? I talk about this when I talk about boundaries and stuff, but anytime you kind of have to tell a client, "Oh, that's not something I can help with," or "No, that isn't something that I'm really able to handle," it's uncomfortable because the client is hoping that you will be. And so I want to recognize that it is tough. You get into this field because you want to help people, and when you feel like you can't, that doesn't always come across as feeling incredibly awesome. I do think that there are ways that we can help. What I want to avoid, though, his staff saying, "Oh, I can watch the cat, I can watch the dog, I can watch the horse or parakeet or whatever kind of wild pet they may have," um, because that's a boundary that we can't really cross. That is, really not the most service-oriented kind of answer that we can have. Allow me to share a story. which I am obviously famous for doing. Uh, so this was a while ago. Um, we had a client that we worked with for a decent amount of time, and he had a cat, and him and his worker had a pretty good relationship. They had been working together for a while, and then this client says, "Hey, you know what? I'm gonna go on a trip. I'm gonna be out of town for a little bit. Is there any way that you could maybe watch my cat?" And our staff said, "Well, yeah. You know what? A short little treat. You're just going out of town for a little bit. I can let me keep an eye on the cat, right?" Now, that's really not something that we should be doing, and I wouldn't condone that kind of thing. However, I understand where the staff was coming from. I understand that they are coming from, "I wanna help my client. This is something that I can take on." Do you wanna know do you wanna know do you wanna know where, the trip was in its duration? It was to prison for wire fraud, and, that client was going to be, gone for, uh, quite a while. Right? And we were not made aware of that, right? He was trying to keep this very, very private. And so we were not made aware of that until eventually we were through the case manager saying, "Hey, he's incarcerated, so his waiver's going to close, so you can end services now." That's a tricky situation. He's the proud owner of a cat or something. Is kind of how that could have gone. Now we found a way for the cat to get to a different caregiver that this client knew and was aware of, but uh that's kind of why I'm very hesitant to say, well, step in and maybe we can watch them or we can keep an eye on them or we can check up on them because we don't always know what the situation is. And I don't want anybody here to wind up with a new pet, a new member of the family, because that's tough to kind of handle and deal with. So I would say avoid that. Obviously, though, we are working with individuals who have oftentimes a more limited bench of natural supports that they can rely on, right? It isn't just, well, I can have my sister or my dad or whomever watch my pet for me. That is not always an option. They don't always have friends, and there is oftentimes a real economic constraint to this as well. Well, I can't afford to have them kenneled for 2 weeks while I am gone. And so I'm unsure. And there is uncertainty as well. When it comes to duration, right? I may be hospitalized for an evening, or I may be hospitalized for the better part of a month, right? And that lack of surety can make it, I think, really hard to come up with a plan. However, and I want to shout out to Lauren, our director of field ops, for helping me put this together. Because she's incredibly kind and great with animals. I have utilized the Animal Humane Society, and they have like a temporary um pet watching that you can do. However, and this is a new requirement. When I had utilized this for clients in the past, we were just kind of able to contact them and then get that sort of emergency pet respite set up pretty quickly. Now there is a requirement that you get a referral from some sort of social worker, case manager. So if you are working with a client and they have a an idea that they're going to be maybe heading to the hospital or they're going to be out of community for a while and they are not sure what to do with their pets, this is a spectacular time to help them reach out to their case manager and help them advocate and say, "Hey, I'm going to be going in for a little bit of a stay in the hospital. Would you please fill out?" And you can find the website. I will send out the links in kind of the wrap up. Um, could you please send this over to the Humane Society so that I can get this emergency pet respite set up? So that is an option. And then the Bond Between is another organization that does emergency pet respite. There are sometimes county requirements, so they I don't believe they serve every county, or they're set up for this in every county. So I would advocate as I probably reach out and make sure. But there is on their list that they can handle. So they are very, very workable. They are really helpful. They have a bunch of different scenarios that this might be good for, even if it is kind of an uncertain duration. If I recall, I think this is capped at about 90 days, so longer than we should probably need to handle. So check out the Animal Humane Society and the Bond Between. I will send out links to both of those websites with their sort of emergency pet respite on there, so that you can support your clients if they need it as an option to sort of address some of this, because it is tricky. I also don't want us wandering though into situations that are tricky for you guys to handle, that are difficult for the client, difficult for the pet. And so it really is kind of a bit of a boundary. We can't be pet sitters, right? That's really not what this service is for. But we can help them find awesome resources that they can utilize in the community to take care of those things instead. So that would be my answer to that question. These things also, I would point out, the emergency pet respite are typically free or reduced cost. So there are certainly, is in terms of affordability, these are spectacular options that are not going to be a huge economic worry for our clients. So that is a spectacular question. That is a question that we get fairly frequently, and so I would highly recommend utilizing those two resources. Spectacular question. The final question that I'm kind of going to review today, unless any more come in live, is I think a a very common one that some of our staff deal with, that I get a lot of questions about, and truthfully, this is a very tough one. I want to be upfront and say addressing something like this is difficult. And the question is, are there any sort of effective ways that I know of to really help somebody with some sort of neurodivergent autism, ADHD diagnoses, to kind of be a little bit more involved in their daily stuff? Obviously, trying to focus on real world involvement over video games. And I think that is a somewhat common issue, right? With our clients, that we have to try to support them through, right? And so I'm gonna kind of break this down a little bit, because on one hand, I want to kind of, for the record, say that for a lot of our clients, things like video games are actually a really awesome tool for them to be able to sort of practice scenarios. They're able to really kind of focus their attention for a long time, which can be, I think, very, very helpful. They offer predictable interactions. So part of what some clients really enjoy about video games is that there's a sort of a clear path that you go through them. There are clear rules involved in the game. So it's a lot of practice for problem solving, practice for social skills. Yeah, there's sort of a predictable sensory loop that you can get with video games. And so I want to sort of, from off the bat, explain that I actually do think that there are some real benefits to things like video games, and even I've seen success with some of my clients too, getting them into role playing games. Everybody at this agency is, I think, well aware that I am pretty much like a professional nerd, and so I love like Dungeons and Dragons and all of that stuff. And I have actually seen a decent amount of success with people. Utilizing those sorts of games as well as an area to try out new social skills, to understand social cues, and to be able to put themselves into a scenario that is obviously very, very low stakes, where they can try out and practice, social scenarios and conversations. And so I actually think there is a big benefit to these things under the right conditions. And that's really important, because when this becomes something that is, the entire session is watching me play my video game, I struggle with that. On one hand, I understand that there's a person-centered requirement. I can't force my clients to really engage, but part of the skills that we need to work on is helping with that engagement. I think that it is very, very easy for a lot of our clients to get sucked into a video game, and it can be really hard for staff to say, "Okay, hey, how about doing our laundry?" Because 1, that doesn't sound like an incredible blast, but 2, it holds your attention, and for clients who might have issues with sort of sustaining an activity and sustaining their attention, something that continuously grabs it is kind of addictive, right? So things that I think are helpful to utilize when doing this. So a lot of the research and a lot of what professionals are going to recommend is going to be, you should get parents involved. And that doesn't always work for our clients because a lot of our clients are adults. They're not living with their parents. And so a lot of kind of the professional literature on how you handle these things is very much geared towards a younger audience. And so that's an immediate difficulty. If you're trying to do research on your own to figure this out, a lot of the articles and a lot of the sort of studies and therapeutic techniques are going to be geared towards children. So how do we translate that to working with our clients? If they are living with anybody or they have involved family or friends, it can be helpful to get them involved a little bit and say, hey, could we maybe reinforce that constant video games is probably not the skill, right? We don't always want to be doing that. There is good and effective time for that, but would you please reinforce this idea that the only activity we do cannot be video games, right? Um, on top of that, something that can be incredibly helpful that I have found to be helpful, and that others have as well, um, is creating a sort of the transition's what's tough, right? Transitioning away from the video game. And sometimes that has to do with sort of a spread out kind of time dilation. It can be hard to recognize that you've been playing for 6 hours because it doesn't feel like it, right? So giving good cues ahead of time, coming up with a plan that they're okay with, where I say, okay, when we are going to be transitioning to getting out of here and running our errands, I'll give you a 15-minute warning, I'll give you a 10-minute warning, I'll give you a 5-minute warning, I'll give you a 2-minute warning. And then after that, we're going to transition, we're going to head out, right? That helps. That gives mental cues to say, "Okay, I'm gonna get ready. I'm going to start this sort of disengagement process. Oh, here's another cue. All right, we're gonna continue with this disengagement, this preparation that I am going to get myself out of this video game. I'm going to get myself into whatever it is we have to do, right?" And creating buy-in that the other activities that we have to do are also very important, right? You need food to eat, you need clothes to be clean. You have to sort of do these things. You want to, and this is something that I've talked to one client of mine about. You are working on a bunch of skills in this video game, and that's excellent. Let's go out and utilize them. Let's go out and utilize our sort of new social skills. Let's go out and use these sort of problem solving skills that we're learning, right? This is the practice ground. Now let's go in and start utilizing those skills out and about, right? Create a more integrated, a bit more of an independent life. The other thing that can be helpful, and this is not always super easy to do, but I've been able to find success with this when it comes to helping clients get out of their house to do like physical activity, to do workouts and stuff, is gamifying those activities, right? And what I mean by that is there are online resources that you can work with them to find that will sort of create almost a real life game to get these tasks done and completed, right? All right, we work out for this long, and this is the amount of hit points or whatever we might deal, or these are the stats that you're working on. These are all actually have been largely effective for helping clients kind of get out of that video game world and then see how these skills that they may be practicing or working on in the video game end up translating to real life. And so creating that kind of gamification, that idea that, well, we are still working on something. Progress in video games, for those of you who do not play them, is oftentimes kind of linear. I can tell when my character is new that they are kind of like wimpy and sad, and now I can crush everything in the game. And so that kind of like progression is easy to see and easy to understand. And if I can help my clients translate that understanding to their own lives and say, look at this is where you started, but here you are now, right? We're out at the gym, we're running our errands, we're doing all these things. That's also big progress. That can help internalize some of this. I don't always need to be playing my video games, right? Again, is this gonna work for every client? No. The honest truth of it is if we are running into situations where a client is really not interested in engaging in most of the facets of what we're supposed to be doing, there is a question then about are they the most appropriate fit for services at this point? Right? There are other services that they can utilize to maybe help with behavioral skills. So they can say, "Hey, you know what? Let's put some limits on video games. Let's make sure that we're really only doing that when staff aren't around." And they can start to implement more of these plans and tools for our staff so that if we come back to services, we are able to kind of speak this similar language of, okay, let's get out and run these errands. You've got your video game time. I'm familiar with that. I now know what the behavioral plan is. We are here to get these tasks done and accomplished. There is, I think, an ebb and flow and sort of a seasonality for the people that we support. And there might be times when they are going to really go into, I don't want to really engage. I kind of want to be doing these other things. I don't want it to become a source of massive frustration for you guys when you are constantly running into an inability to kind of engage them because there is obviously a skill to engaging and there are ways that you can try to do it, but at the end of the day, I can't compel my clients to do anything, nor do I want to. I can use techniques, but if those techniques are not effective, then I think there becomes a really great question about client fitness at this time for the service. All of this, and I really should like have t-shirts made because the most basic answer that I can give to this as well is if you are working with a client and you are trying these different engagement techniques and you are having these conversations and it isn't really coming through, it isn't really sticking, the client is really kind of reverting back to, oh nope, it's just going to be video games, that's really all I want to do. Reach out to your field coordinator, right? That is something that we're going to probably need to talk to the rest of their support team about. That is something where it's going to probably end up being a group effort. And the sooner that we know this is an issue, the sooner that we can kind of start handling it from multiple angles. So, along with trying to set up good cue guidance and having a cadence to, all right, here's your 10-minute warning, here's your 5-minute warning, here's your 2-minute warning. All right, and let's go grocery shopping. Work on that skill, but always loop your field coordinator in. This is helpful stuff for everybody to know. And the more communication you have about your clients with your field coordinators, the more we are able to support you and your clients. So please keep us in the loop for all of this. Try some of these things out. I know I've had some success with these things. I've also had plenty of clients though who don't really take to it. And that is again kind of part of this service and part of learning what a client is super interested in and able to do and where we might need to ask for outside help and support when it comes to helping our clients. So that is a great question. That is a question that I think I've seen a lot of people ask in many different ways and it is a tricky one to handle and deal with. So wonderful, spectacular, excellent questions. I'm not seeing any others kind of come through chat or anything, so that is good. Hopefully, I'm answering the questions that people feel they would like answered. I will be sending out a another recap email just like I did last time with links to Animal Humane Society's respite program and the Bond Betweens respite program so that you guys, if you are ever working with a client who's worried about a pet, you can get those resources there. As always, if there's a question that you would like me to answer, feel free to shoot me an email. And next time, next Friday, I will be there. Thank you guys so much for another really successful here for it. I am here for it. I'm here for it. Everybody, stay cool. It's going to be warm this weekend. Enjoy. Have an excellent day. Good morning, everybody. And gosh, I will see you all next Friday. Have a good one.